on this call, if not all of you, already know who I am. Typically, we do our live event in Oak Brook for the local functional medicine meetup. We call it the Functional Medicine Resource Group, just always trying to provide any and all information that we can to help keep everybody current with what is going on in functional and integrative medicine. And really just always my goal to have great speakers, provide great content, connect people within the functional and integrative medicine industry, and really just grow this special little niche that we have that is obviously becoming more and more mainstream and in the Chicagoland area. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this on to John Halbert, and he will present or introduce our speaker. So John, go ahead. I'm going to mute myself and you can take over.
Thanks very much, Tim. Hi, everybody. My name is John Halbert, and I work with Berkeley Life Nitric Oxide Support. Tim and I have been working together, I'd say, for nearly about a little over a year now. And, he'd come to me looking to have someone speak on the topic of nitric oxide. So Beth Shirley and I have been working together now since the start of the year, and Beth supports us from a scientific perspective in the area of nitric oxide. Beth has developed an expertise as a pharmacist and certified clinical nutritionist over what is about a 40-year career. Her experience spans compounding pharmacy for individualized treatment, drug nutrient depletion programs, bioidentical hormone balance, wellness department development and management, dietary supplement integration. So a broad experience there. And currently Beth provides clinical nutrition services for wellness focused individuals across really an entire age spectrum. In that realm, her specialties include stress-induced hormonal balance, intestinal dysfunction, autoimmune and chronic inflammatory issues, detoxification, and supernormal oxidative stress. From a nitric oxide perspective, then Beth has been working with really some of the thought leaders in the world of nitric oxide over the last 9 years or so, and through this has developed an in-depth knowledge on the topic and really its applications in a clinical setting. So, we've been working in the nitric oxide space for a little over 3 years now, and I'd easily say Beth is probably the most well-informed person in the space, and I couldn't think of a better person to present this topic for us. So without further ado, I'll hand this over to Beth, and she'll take us through kind of some of the information on nitric oxide. So I will start sharing my screen, and Beth, if you can hear us there, you can take it away.
Good evening, everybody. Let's talk about nitric oxide. What is nitric oxide? It is a molecule of nitrogen and a molecule of oxygen. It's one of the 3 key gases, along with O2, oxygen, and CO2, carbon dioxide. Nitric oxide is not nitrous oxide, the anesthetic or laughing gas, and it's not nitrogen dioxide, air pollution. There's been a Nobel Prize in Medicine awarded to nitric oxide in 1998 for the discovery that NO plays a significant role in the cardiovascular system. NO is truly the miracle molecule, where it widens blood vessels and microcirculation, allowing oxygen and nutrient delivery to all cells. The fact is, we produce less of NO as we age. Nitric oxide is clinically validated. There are 5,768 studies listed on PubMed showing that nitric oxide has a positive effect in the body. There have been over 60,000 studies done on nitric oxide in the last 20 years. The cartoon up in the corner shows that from the age 20 on, we lose the capability to make the nitric oxide about 10% every single year to about the age of 40, where the nitric oxide formation is decreased about 50%. Next slide. There's two main pathways to make nitric oxide in our body. The NOS enzyme pathway takes arginine and it goes through the NOS, nitric oxide synthase enzyme, to make NO. There are three main NOS enzymes. The NOS1, or the neuronal NOS, the NOS2, the inducible NOS, and the inducible is what our body uses to make NO to protect against pathogens, protect against virus, bacteria, fungi. And then there's NOS3, which is the endothelial NOS. But all three of these decrease in effectiveness as we get older. Then there's a pathway of the nitrate, nitrite, NO pathway. This is a non-NOS enzyme pathway. We eat nitrates or take a supplement of nitrate. It's absorbed and it's concentrated in the salivary glands, and nitrite is produced, NO2. And then it's reduced again to NO. This pathway will be able to supplement the declining effectiveness of the NOS enzymes. The Berkeley Life test strips test the nitrite from that pathway. So they're testing the available nitrite that can form the NO. So this pathway, we eat the nitrates or take the supplement, swallow it. It's absorbed through a little in the stomach, mostly in the small intestine. It's circulated around, and 25% of the nitrate is concentrated in the salivary glands. We've got good anaerobic bacteria on the top of our tongue that reduce the nitrate to nitrite. The nitrite is swallowed, and in the acidic environment of the stomach, the nitrite is reduced to NO. The nitrite can also be absorbed and carried around to other places in the body where NO is needed. The nitrate-rich foods. This slide is a really important slide. It's a good one to hand out to patients to help educate them to the source of nitrates in our foods. There's the very high, the arugula, the spinach, the lettuce, the celery. Most of you might know the medical medium and is penchant for celery juice. It's the nitrate concentration in the celery juice that is doing all the goodness. Beetroot is very high, Chinese cabbage, radish. But this is good to show your patients how they can increase the nitrates in their diet so that they can increase the NO production to support their physiology. Studies have shown that it takes about 300 to 400 milligrams of nitrate to see changes in blood pressure or improvement in exercise capacity. It's estimated that the US population consumes less than 150 milligrams of nitrate per day. The Berkeley Life NO Support product has about 500 milligrams of nitrates in them. The way the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet work to decrease cardiovascular disease and increase longevity is the nitrate concentration in them. So what if 50% or more of the NO bioactivity was determined and dictated by foods or diets containing nitrate or nitrite in a good oral microbiome? Well, this is something we can affect. And as you see, as we get older, our NO production goes down. But we can take care of that. We can affect that. Many factors affect the NO formation. Aging, like we had just seen in the previous slide. By the time we're 40, our NOS enzyme function at about 50%. So by adding nitrates with the diet and supplementation, we can rescue our NO production. The diet, the standard American diet, the SAD, inflammatory diets with lots of grains and sugars, and the intake, the decreasing intake of nitrate-rich veggies, all of these decrease our formation of NO. Exercise. Physical inactivity decreases NO production. Regular exercise increases the eNOS, the endothelial NOS production of NO. Medications, this is a big one. NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like Celebrex, Motrin. These decrease NO synthesis, which is the reason why their use is connected to cardiovascular disease and kidney issues. There's been some studies using NO donor supplements with these non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs to increase the NO, like Berkeley Life, to mitigate some of the damage that these NSAIDs cause. Oral contraceptives decrease NO production. These have been shown to cause hypertension and insulin resistance. Antibiotics. Not only do antibiotics affect the intestinal microbiome, they affect the oral microbiome and the good bacteria we have in our tongue to help reduce the nitrate to nitrite. Antibacterial mouthwashes. These have been shown to cause direct impairment of vascular function by decreasing the NO production. With even the first use of it, by the time you're using it regularly for 7 days, blood pressure appreciably goes up. There's a latest study by Nathan Bryan, an NO researcher. He talked about tongue scraping. Regular tongue scraping actually supports the healthy population of the good bacteria that make NO. So brushing your teeth with non-antibacterial toothpaste and scraping your tongue will help your NO production. PPIs, proton pump inhibitors. This is like Prilosec, Nexium. These decrease NO production in both of those NO pathways. They contribute to cardiovascular disease, heart disease, decreased kidney function, increased dementia, increased chance of infection, increased bone fractures. The stomach acid, antacids, and the PPIs, which decrease the production of stomach acid in the stomach, both of these will decrease the reduction of nitrite to NO. The conversion of nitrite to NO needs an acidic stomach to be able to start that conversion. Pollution. Pollution increases oxidative stress, which increases free radicals. This decreases the bioavailability of the endothelial-derived NO. NO acts like a scavenger of free radicals. So when you have all these free radicals from the pollution, you're using up the NO to try to scavenge them. Genetics. Many people have genetic SNPs in the NOS enzyme system, decreasing the production of NO, or they have an issue with one of the cofactors for NOS, like with the NADP or the FAD or the FMN or the heme production. All of these influence the NOS. Somebody's got MTHFR gene SNPs. These decrease the production of BH4. BH4 helps the NOS take the arginine and make it into NO. So you have the dysfunction of the NOS. You can't generate NO. You have endothelial dysfunction, and that equals cardiovascular disease. We can bypass all these genetic SNPs and the dysfunction of the NOS by increasing our nitrate consumption through that alternate pathway. Some NO clinical applications. This truly is a miracle molecule. It influences virtually every aspect of human physiology. All of these areas that I'm going to talk about, they've all been clinically documented. I know it may sound too good to be true, but it truly does affect every single physiological process. The blood pressure and cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer in the United States. 1 out of every 4 deaths in the United States is from cardiovascular disease. That's like 4 jumbo jets crashing and killing everyone on board every single hour, every single day. That's a lot. By lowering the blood pressure by just 5 millimoles of mercury, this decreases the risk of stroke by 34% and ischemic heart disease by 21%. One of our recent studies shows that Berkeley Life decreases the systolic blood pressure by 12.5 millimoles of mercury and 4.7 millimoles of mercury diastolic. I actually get people off of blood pressure medication with the Berkeley Life. Sexual function. You've got vasodilation and innervation of erectile tissue. Erectile dysfunction happens at about 20% in total male population. 30 to 50% in those aged 40 to 70. Greater than 60% in men older than 70. This truly impacts quality of life. There's evidence that suggests that ED may serve as a general marker for cardiovascular disease. This is one of the first markers that shows us that the blood vessels are not healthy. The phosphodiesterase inhibitors for ED, like Cialis and Viagra, they cannot work without adequate NO concentration in the tissue. And that's why you have some failures on those drugs. These people are NO to begin with, and then they don't even have enough NO to allow these drugs to work. With the sexual function, I usually have people do 2 capsules of the Berkeley Life in the morning, and then add 2 capsules, maybe an hour or 2 prior to sex, to make sure that that tissue is ready for action, I guess. For cognitive function and neurogenesis, increasing the blood flow to the brain increases delivery of oxygen, glucose, and nutrients to the brain tissue, and increases the removal of waste. Both of these may decrease the progression of age-related cognitive decline. The neuroprotective actions of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, is thought to be mediated by NO for increased neuronal survival. NO is essential to learning processes and memory function because NO is actually a neurotransmitter. It is a non-cholinergic, non-adrenergic neurotransmitter. I have a client giving the Berkeley Life to her mother, and she said after she's been on it for just a week, she can see definite improvements in her mom's cognitive function. NO enhances exercise performance. With adequate NO, the tissue will require less oxygen, less O2. NO increases the duration you're able to exercise. The NO regulates blood flow, muscle contractility, mitochondrial function, and regeneration of the mitochondria. NO increases mitochondrial biogenesis. And mitochondria increases the ATP, the energy made in the cell, so somebody can exercise longer and harder. NO enhances muscle recovery and prevents soreness. You don't get as sore. I have people take the Berkeley Life 1 to 2 hours prior to exercise. NO is very important in wound healing. It increases the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the tissue and cleaning out of the waste products as we're healing. There's a lot of work that's being done with transdermal NO products. There's a cream for diabetic ulcers. There's a NO releasing topical gel for burn wound healing. So you can test people with the strips to find out if you're getting enough nitrite to make the NO. So test, test, test. because in these instances of wound healing, you may need more than just the 2 capsules every morning. Blood glucose. Diabetics have a lower than normal NO level. Diabetes decreases NO production, which increases the diabetic issues, which decreases the NO production and puts you in this bad, vicious cycle. Frequently, diabetics have amputations, infections, non-healing wounds, and the NO will help heal those wounds, help improve the circulation. Better blood flow equates to better circulation, which improves all these issues related to diabetes: neuropathy, cardiovascular disease, blood pressure, heart, kidney function, eye health. Just today, the FDA okayed a biologic for diabetic retinopathy. I would think by increasing the nitrate intake, we could support that microcirculation in the eye and help that. But it's not just about the blood flow. NO activates the GLUT4 receptor, which works with insulin to bring glucose into the cell. Stem cells and hyperbaric. Stem cells, they're required in our body for us to heal ourselves. Stem cells require adequate NO for them to mobilize and differentiate into the cells to heal particular tissue. So anyone undergoing any stem cell procedure requires sufficient NO to be effective. So if you've got anybody that is going to do any stem cell treatments, make sure that you give them adequate nitrate support. Hyperbarics and fasting, both of these stimulate the production of stem cells, like the prolonged fasting mimicking diet. To make stem cells, it requires adequate NO. And the prolonged increases stem cells, but you've got to give the body enough NO. And we do that with the nitrate supplementation. Hyperbarics increase NO. This affects certain enzymes in the bone marrow that stimulate the release of stem cells from the marrow. I have a hyperbaric clinic that puts everybody on Berkeley Life before they have any treatments, any hyperbaric treatments. Okay.
Thanks very much, Beth. Hi guys, this is John again here. I'm just going to jump in and talk a little bit about the Berkeley test strip. I know it was touched on a few times, but wanted to give a little bit more color to it. So the test strips themselves they're simple, non-invasive saliva test strips. The origin of them and how they were developed was really through or for the purpose of high performance athletes. So as Beth touched on there, nitric oxide, one of the more common applications has been for high performance athletes, particularly endurance athletes looking to optimize their levels before races or training, and that really was one of the key reasons the product was developed, and still to this day is one of the main uses for the product. How we found it has been adapted and really applied best in the clinical setting is really two main areas. One is in patient education. So what we found is that, nitric oxide, while, when you sit down with someone and explain it, it is a relatively straightforward concept, but when you layer in the addition of this personalized test and people not only seeing, the majority of people at least, not only seeing a poor result when they initially take the test, but there's that instant validation or confirmation when they see improvement after either consuming a leafy green diet or consuming a nitrate-rich supplement. So it really is a valuable tool in a clinical setting in education. And as you'll see there, the product does come in larger supplies of 50-count strips, and most of the practitioners we work with will just test patients as part of a routine workup and engage them on the topic, especially given the plethora of applications that Beth outlined there. The third, if you include the endurance athletes, the third application really is in compliance for patients. So if you look at the compliance with any kind of medication, it's never kind of what we would want. And when you add in the ability of a patient to test on a frequent basis, and again, understand a little bit more of what's going on in their body and to see those changes over time, this tool really is effective in doing that. So if someone, say, is going down the route of supplementation to improve their nitric oxide levels, generally they only need to test once or twice in order to see the product working. And we do provide 2 test strips in each supply of supplements. But if someone chooses to go down the route of, say, a DASH diet, where they're increasing their intake of dietary nitrates, they may want to test more frequently. What we found is that it's not only the type of vegetables or leafy greens that you're eating, it's also the source of those leafy greens. So if you're consuming them from one source, they may be high in dietary nitrates, whereas the same vegetable from a different source may not be. So when someone's trying the dietary route, it really can be a trial and error process, and that's why the test strips are really so valuable in helping those people make that lifestyle change. In terms of how they work, it's very straightforward. You simply place the pad closest to the saliva here on the tongue for about 5 seconds. Make sure it gets plenty of saliva on there. Take it out, press the 2 ends together for, again, about 5 to 10 seconds, and then compare it against this simple color chart that we have here. As I said, even going to conferences with physicians that are focused on a plant-based diet, it's surprising to see how many are in the depleted category. The reason for that is just the short half-life of nitric oxide, which Beth will touch on in a moment. But the great thing is that with simple additions of leafy greens or with 2 capsules, they can improve that reading in as little as 90 minutes to 2 hours. The one thing to remember when using the test strip is that you shouldn't eat or drink about 10 minutes before doing the test. Any kind of, even water, any kind of pollutant in the mouth will affect your reading and generally give a false low reading. So it's really important to make sure that haven't eaten or drank anything about 10 minutes before doing the test. That kind of it's good way back there. It goes into a little bit more detail here in terms of how you would suggest to someone around the supplement, for example, or around a meal. They would test before. Using the test strip, they would consume their leafy green meal, or they would consume their dose of nitrate-rich supplements, and then test again about 90 minutes later. So that really just gives you a step-by-step breakdown of how that works. Here you'll see how the results will appear on the test strip. Again, you're looking for either these top 2 results, which would be the target or high levels of nitrite. And again, the test is simply the grease reagent reaction, which is a simple measure of nitrite in a solution. The solution in this scenario is saliva. So Beth, I'll pass it back to you just to talk a little bit more about the supplement and the ingredients.
So the Berkeley Life Professional NO Support has vitamin C as ascorbic acid. Vitamin C helps regenerate the NO, and the ascorbic acid helps acidify the stomach contents to help the reduction of the nitrite to NO. Thiamine helps with blood sugar. Vitamin B12 as a methylcobalamin. This helps. Methylcobalamin is needed in the MTHF pathway, so this will help with the production of BH4. Magnesium is our body's own relaxer. We're all magnesium deficient. Potassium is very important to the heart. And then we have about 500 milligrams of the potassium nitrate and the beetroot extract as our nitrate source. So with any kind, with the, oops, quick, there we go. So I recommend 2 capsules in the morning. And then if we can get patients to have a nitrate-rich lunch, maybe a spinach salad with some celery at midday, and then at evening, maybe some beets. This will help prolong the effect, the NO effect of the capsules. The nitrates have a half-life of 5 to 8 hours. So by eating every 4 to 5 hours a nitrate-rich meal, this will help stabilize the NO production. So you can check, like test with the strips to see if somebody's getting enough nitrite to make their NO. I know the diet may be a challenge for some people. So some people, if they can't get enough nitrates in their diet, you can add 1 or 2 capsules in the evening. Next one. So 2 capsules, about 500 milligrams per 2 capsules. It's the same level as about 5 ounces of spinach or 7 ounces of beets. So the DASH diet, the dietary approach to stop hypertension, this has greater than 1 gram, 1,000 milligrams of nitrates. So we're not even, I mean, with 2 capsules, we're only doing half of that. Okay, next one. So with any supplement, you want to ask, does it work? And are there studies with this product, not just with the isolated ingredients? So we can check if it's working through the test strips. And then John will tell us about the studies.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. So we didn't really cover Life's Too Good, who's the parent company of Berkeley Life, but we've been working in the supplement space for a little over 10 years now, and our approach very much is with supplements to clinically validate them on our end, because that's really how we feel we stand out from the crowd. So as we have approached this, the first 2 studies, the first one in particular was looking at validating that the product was increasing nitric oxide levels. So that was measuring both nitrite in saliva, but also nitric oxide in serum, which is quite a difficult thing to do. And it was a small pilot study that looked at the effects that our supplement had at various intervals after consuming them. The second is a much larger study conducted in LA Biomed in conjunction with UCLA, and that was really focusing on 2 key endpoints of the systolic diastolic blood pressure, as Beth mentioned earlier, but also endothelial function. As we discussed, the systolic blood pressure came down by about 12.5 points, and the diastolic by 4.7, which is very significant, especially for those in the pre-hypertensive category. And many of the subjects that were involved in that study were taking other medication. So it is, one of the recommendations coming out of that is that it is a good pairing for people that are on antihypertensive medications. So that has been submitted for publication, and we've already presented a clinical poster for that at the ACC scientific sessions in New Orleans this year, and we'll also be presenting at the lipid meeting in Miami this coming weekend. So it really has been, as good as we expected. But even the clinical, or the chief investigator, Dr. Matt Budoff, was surprised by the significance of the reductions in blood pressure. The last study was one that was brought to us by Dr. Scott Cameron of the University of Rochester, and really it was more of an investigative study on how a nitrate-rich supplement like ours would affect platelet aggregation. So that's one that's still in the process, and we're hoping to complete enrollment by sometime in the middle of July and have a preliminary paper to discuss sometime in Q3, Q4 of this year. But again, that's really exciting research, kind of puts our product up against the likes of aspirin in terms of its effect on the body. So we'll continue to research, again, looking at the various applications of nitric oxide. We're right now focusing on a small sliver, and blood pressure being one of the most common applications, but the possibilities of research, and once we understand how significant of an increase of nitric oxide our product results in, I think we can start to be more adventurous in terms of the types of studies that we can do. And this is something I'm sure Tim will share out the presentation after the call, but this is the clinical poster that we did present at ACC. It was quite significant. I think we were one of only 2 supplements that were allowed to present on the ACC floor. So, the results and the association with someone of the caliber of Dr. Budoff really is significant for us, and the cardiology space is one that we're definitely looking to focus on in the coming year, because it's obviously not normal for a supplement to get such high regard. So it definitely was a big win for the product. With that, that's really the what we've ready to present, but I know Beth and myself are happy to take any questions about the product, either here or definitely if any questions come up in the coming days or weeks, or potential applications that you have specific questions on, we'd be happy to carry them. Tim, I'm not sure how you want to coordinate the Q&A session, if there's any potential structure that you want to go by.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, you have the ability to raise your hand. So if you do that, go ahead and raise your hand and I can unmute you. Or there is a chat box if you prefer not to ask your question out loud. You could type it in the chat box and I can answer it that way.
Do you want me to say a few words about nitrosamines?
Yeah, while people are entering their questions, I think nitrosamines is something that definitely commonly comes up for me when I go to conferences.
Well, nitrosamines can be made with nitrates, nitrates, and amino acids. And there was a study that caused a big scare that connected nitrates with cancer risk. So that study has been discredited after they put it through the peer review process. There have been major reviews of scientific literature that found no link whatsoever between nitrates or nitrites in human cancer. So even the nitrate and the nitrite-free products actually use natural sources like celery juice and beet juice that may have even more nitrates and nitrites than the added nitrates and nitrites to products. So 1 serving of arugula, or 2 servings of butter lettuce, or 4 servings of celery have more nitrite than 467 hot dogs. So it's a non-issue, people being afraid of nitrates and nitrites because of the nitrosamines.
And similarly, Beth, I don't really touch on it, but I think I get frequently as well the confusion between nitrites used to cure meats, and again, they're a different, completely separate issue in terms of the nitrites that we're talking about here around a plant-based diet, or even the consumption of a supplement like Berkeley Life. There's none of the same concerns with kind of nitrites that are used to cure meats.
Well, when they're curing the meat, the nitrite that they use, it binds to iron, and that's what gives it the pink color. But that is actually forming NO, nitric oxide. That's what gives it the pink color.
So Tim, did we have any questions or anyone want further clarification or anything?
I do not have any hands up. Let me check the questions. There's polls and questions in chat. I'm not getting anything come through here, so I'm assuming I'll get some follow-up questions after this. That's typically people tend to wait for that. So I will pass that on. This is recorded, so I will get the recording out to everyone. And unless you or Beth have anything else, just thank you for everybody who attended. And we will get you the follow-up information with the slides and everything that John is going to provide to us. So have a great night. John, did you have anything to add, or Beth, did you have anything to add?
No, I would like to thank Beth for her time, and also like to thank Tim for giving us the opportunity to share some information about nitric oxide. And absolutely, if anyone has questions after the call,
John, I'm going to cut you off here really quick. Sorry.
Okay.
Can we go back to the supplement label slide? I was asked that. Can we jump back to that?
Yes, there we are.
I don't know if there's a question past that, or if they just wanted to take a look at it.
Sure.
So I guess while we leave that up, and again, I'll send this out too, but let me just see if this turns into a question or not. Sorry about that.
So some of the common patient experiences that I have received from this product.
So the question here, sorry Beth, is the potassium is labeled as the source is magnesium citrate. Is that a misprint on here, or is that actually where the potassium is coming from? As it says potassium as magnesium citrate.
Let me look and double check on the. I'll have to stop sharing my screen there, and I'll go to a separate file in our folders here and double check. Again, that's a good catch, and that doesn't appear to be correct. I don't have a box in my hands right.
Potassium nitrate.
It wouldn't be so. So what I have here is potassium. Yeah, so that's just an error and a duplication of the. A duplication of the ingredient before. It should just say potassium with nothing after it.
Somebody had a good eye, didn't they?
Yeah, I'm impressed, last embarrassed. But yes, I'll correct that, Tim, and send you an updated version. But this should just say potassium with nothing after it. That's an error on our front.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up then. So again, Beth, thank you so much. Thank you, John, for helping to put this together. And everybody have a great night.
No problem. Thanks, Tim. Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.